You ever see two grown bikers, all leather and tattoos, standing in the middle of a quiet cul-de-sac, looking like they'd just been caught shoplifting at Sunday school? Yeah, that was my front yard one Thursday. One of them kept whispering, "We didn't know, man. We didn't know," like he'd just found out Santa wasn't real. The other was holding out an envelope like it might explode. Meanwhile, my wife Sarah was frozen on the porch, still clutching her iced tea, staring at me like I'd summoned all this chaos just by watering the begonias. And there I was, standing with a garden hose in hand, watching two bikers trample my petunias, apologizing for crushing them. Honest to God, it looked like a biker rally crashed a PDA meeting and someone hit fast forward on the weirdest day of my life. The smaller guy, probably 25 at most, was on his knees, frantically picking up stray mulch, eyes darting to my wife like he expected her to grade his landscaping. Let me back up a sec. My name's David Garrison. Sarah and I moved to Pine Ridge Estates for the quiet, you know? Guess which word ended up being a lie. Enter Patricia Hoffman, HOA president, queen of the neighborhood, and possibly the world's first humanoid clipboard. I swear, that woman could measure the height of your grass with a squint, and she never missed a chance to let you know you were living in her kingdom. First, it was trash bins left out 17 minutes past curfew. Then a letter about grass that dared to reach 3.2 inches. Scandalous. She once cited us for coiling the garden hose counterclockwise instead of clockwise. Section 12.4. If you're keeping score at home. Then she started showing up behind our fence, binoculars raised, swearing she was birdwatching, but only ever staring straight at our barbecue. She called animal control on our lab. Buddy claimed he was a wolf hybrid. Buddy's scared of butterflies and once got mugged by a squirrel. The more creative she got, the more Sarah started jumping every time someone walked by, worried it was Patricia with a fresh citation. And finally, when she caught me installing a small backyard fire pit, she lost her mind, called it an illegal incineration zone, and escalated in a way that only a truly committed HOA president can. Next thing I know, these two bikers show up, supposedly to convince my wife to remove the fire pit. $300 each, straight from Patricia, recruited from a place called the Rusty Chain, with a script and instructions to make sure the wife understands who runs this neighborhood. Now, here's what Patricia didn't know. Before all this, I spent 12 years as a Marine Corps close-quarters combat instructor. Never advertised it. Never wore camo to block parties. My unit patches are in a box in the attic, not on display, but I guess old reflexes die hard. Because when those bikers stepped on my lawn, smirking at my wife, muscle memory just took over. Sarah's voice went tight and nervous when she told them to leave. The big guy made a joke about me needing to learn respect for community standards. I set down my watering can, walked over in my gardening apron covered in sunflowers. Yeah, that happened. They started their tough guy act, but as soon as the big one reached towards Sarah, I moved. Next thing they knew, one of them was face first in the hydrangeas, and the other was squealing as I bent his arm behind his back. 30 seconds. That's all it took. The transformation was priceless. Two tough guys turned into apologetic kids, swearing up and down they had no idea what they'd signed up for. Turns out, Patricia had sent them texts, photos of our house, our cars, even Sarah, snapped through a bedroom window. Instructions to rev their motorcycles for exactly 2 minutes for maximum intimidation. When they realized who I was, both bikers couldn't apologize fast enough. Jake, the big one, was near hyperventilating, going on about his kid and not wanting jail time. Marcus, his buddy, actually tried to Venmo Patricia's money back on the spot that I told them I wasn't interested in ruining their lives. But Patricia? That was another story. I asked if they'd be willing to explain this whole misunderstanding to her face in front of everyone. They agreed faster than you can say bad life choices. So there we are, marching up to Patricia's porch, half the neighborhood out in their yards, catching the show. Patricia opened the door, all power suit and clipboard. Jake and Marcus waved the texts around. Patricia denied everything until Marcus read out, "Make sure the wife cries. That'll teach him." You could feel the air get sucked out of the street. Mrs. Henderson 2 doors down dropped her shears. Bob Stanley let his lawnmower stall right there in the driveway. Even the local teens stopped recording TikToks long enough to film the showdown. Patricia tried to bolt inside, but Jake kept reading her threats about getting our property taxes reassessed if we caused trouble. You could see the neighbors connect dots, so that's why their trash fines tripled last month. Someone called the cops. By the time the officers showed up, Patricia was shrieking about how she was the real victim, how the HOA would collapse without her. The cops just kept repeating, "Ma'am, please step away from the door." Now, Patricia's facing a mountain of charges: harassment, conspiracy to commit assault, criminal intimidation. Turns out, when you pay people to intimidate neighbors, the law calls that a lot of felonies. The prosecutor, Janet Crawford, tough as nails, said those texts were an open and shut case. Patricia's looking at 3 years and $50,000 in fines, minimum. But the real blow? The HOA booted her the very next day, unanimous vote. Even her diehard supporters turned on her, probably realizing she'd used HOA funds to pay for her personal lawn service. That added embezzlement to her resume. Her real estate license is suspended. She got fired from her agency, and when the judge read the charges in court, she fainted dead away, had to be revived with smelling salts. You know what's wild? As they let her out in cuffs, she was still muttering about the fire pit, like any of that mattered anymore. So, the fire pit's still here. The begonias bounced back. And the neighborhood? Well, let's just say the next HOA meeting had record attendance. People talk more openly now. There's a little less fear on the air. Here's the thing. HOAs, rules, neighborhood order. Sure, those matter. But when control turns to obsession, when community standards become weapons, you get chaos instead of peace. So where's the line? Who gets to draw it? Tell me, was justice served, or did it go too far? Drop your thoughts below, share your HOA stories, and tell me, if your neighbor turned your life upside down, what would you do? If you told me a month ago that I'd become some kind of suburban folk hero just for standing up to the HOA president, I would have laughed in your face. I'm not the hero type. I'm just a guy who wanted a backyard fire pit and some peace, maybe a cold beer at the end of the week without feeling like I was being watched by a surveillance drone disguised as a neighbor. But after Patricia's arrest, something weird happened. The neighborhood started acting, well, different at first. People were just relieved. You could see it in the way folks started lingering on their front lawns, actually talking to each other, trading stories about Patricia's reign, like survivors swapping war stories. The Thompson twins, who'd never said a word to me before, stopped by with homemade cookies. Okay, their mom probably made them, but still. Bob Stanley, the guy whose lawnmower died during the big showdown, actually asked my advice about fertilizer, and I swear, I saw Mrs. Henderson smiling for the first time since we moved in. But just when it seemed like Pine Ridge Estates might finally relax, the real twist dropped. A week after Patricia got hauled off, we got a letter, official, gold seal, all that, from the HOA board. They wanted me to join as acting president until the next election. Yeah, I nearly choked on my coffee. Turns out, everyone assumed that since I'd handled Patricia, I'd be the one to keep order. You know what I should have said? No thanks. I've had enough HOA drama for one lifetime. But something about seeing my neighbors looking to me, not out of fear, but respect, got under my skin. Maybe it was pride. Maybe I was just tired of bullies winning. Or maybe I wanted to prove you could run a neighborhood without turning it into a police state. So I said yes. And instantly learned that nobody ever really wins with HOAs. My first meeting, I walked in with a folder and a smile, hoping for a fresh start, and got hit with a tsunami of complaints. Lawn flamingos, holiday lights, barking dogs, leaf blowers before 9 a.m., the whole 9 yards. Some people wanted every rule enforced to the letter. Others wanted to burn the rule book and dance on the ashes. And, just my luck, Patricia's old cronies tried to stir up drama from the sidelines, spreading rumors that I was going to ruin the neighborhood's reputation by letting the grass grow wild and turning every yard into a junkyard. That's when I met Geraldine, a 70-year-old widow who'd lived here longer than anyone, and who nobody ever listened to because she mostly kept to herself. She showed up at the first open board meeting, sat in the back with her knitting, and let everyone else shout themselves hoarse. But after an hour of bickering, she stood up, cleared her throat, and said, "You all sound like children fighting over the last cookie. Maybe if you spent half as much energy looking out for each other as you do spying on each other, this would actually be a community." Dead silence. And then, for the first time, the room started listening. Geraldine, quiet, unassuming Geraldine, became my unexpected ally. She had a way of cutting through the noise, reminding folks that neighborhoods aren't about grass height or mailbox color. They're about the people living next door. Before long, she was sitting beside me at every meeting, knitting away, keeping me honest. If I ever started to sound like Patricia, all it took was a raised eyebrow from Geraldine and I'd catch myself. Still, not everyone was thrilled with the new regime. A few diehards tried to bring back the old ways, demanding order and standards. They even circulated a petition to oust me. I'll admit, it got to me. For a minute, I wondered if maybe Patricia had been right. Maybe you can't please everyone. Maybe the only way to keep peace is by being a little bit of a tyrant. But then something wild happened. Sarah, my wife, who hated the spotlight, who just wanted peace and quiet, stood up at the next meeting, holding up a tray of cookies, and said, "If anyone's got a real issue with David, or the way this place is run, you're welcome to come talk to us. Our door's open. Just bring your best story, and maybe some pie." People laughed. The tension broke. I realized that leadership doesn't mean barking orders or chasing people with tape measures. Sometimes it's just being the first to open your door. That'd be why the end of that first month, Patricia's house went on the market. Her reign was officially over. Geraldine's garden won Yard of the Month, a title she'd never even wanted, and the neighborhood decided, for the first time ever, to host a block party. There were no rules about tint color or cupcake flavors, just neighbors, music, and, for once, no drama. The fire pit was the centerpiece. Even the bikers, Jake and Marcus, showed up with their kids and a store-bought pie, nervous but grinning, like they wanted a second chance. And here's the kicker. Right as the night wound down, someone suggested making the block party a new tradition, a symbol that this neighborhood had changed. People clapped. Someone handed me a sparkler, and for a split second, I saw what this place could be. But before you think it all ended with a Disney sunset, let me just say, there are still problems. Some folks still grumble, some rules still spark debate, and a few people keep checking over their fences like the clipboard queen might reappear. Maybe she will, who knows? All I know is, nothing changes if nobody's willing to stand up, take a risk, or just invite a stranger over for So now I'm curious. Was taking on the HOA worth it? Did the bad guy really lose? Or did we all just find a better way to argue? Where's the line between order and overreach, between neighborly and nosy? Drop your thoughts below, share your own neighborhood battles, and let's be honest, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Go on, tell me, community or chaos, which side are you on?